The Circle of Knowledge podcast is brought to you by Amplified Minds, helping entrepreneurs and professionals achieve their goals and aspirations by sharing a wealth of knowledge to you, our community of achievers. This podcast features best-selling industry resources, interviews, and the professional panel discussion by the core team at Amplified Minds. Now, here are their discussions. Hey everybody, good morning. Welcome back. This is John Kovacs Jr., host of the Circle of Knowledge podcast, president of Amplified Minds, and founder of the Champion Circle. I just realized that that's a mouthful. That's a big mouthful. I've got a lot of things going on my plate, but today I get to interview a good friend, an awesome friend, someone who we've been in business with, some partnerships and some contact and a lot of support over the last couple of years. And the story behind this gentleman is somebody who I've already interviewed on the show in season 2 and 3. And we've had some really great discussions about some of the books he's written and some of the projects he's been involved in. And I'm just a big fan of this gentleman. And we actually met through a coaching platform. And I had the rare opportunity of being an accountability partner for this gentleman. And as we worked together, kind of working through our transformations. And, it's funny, I was supposed to be the accountability partner, but this gentleman helped me become more of an accountability partner where accountability went two ways. He would always, after I would ask how he was doing on his goals, he would follow up with me and say, how's everything going on your end? And he was just so joyful and so kind and so outreaching. It caused me to believe and think, oh man, he actually cares about what I'm working on. And it has just grown since then. We've got a great friendship and a great support system here. And I love what this guy is doing, and I love what he has to offer to the world. And his name is James Stephenson. James, welcome. How are you? And thank you for being on the show again.
I am doing very well, and thank you, John, for inviting me and letting me take up space on your wonderful show again.
Oh, please take up as much space as you want.
Well, you're very, very kind on your introduction, and it's fun to think about that because I hadn't thought about that. It's been a few years now since we did that, and yeah, I remember you were I think we were texting, or I had phone calls actually for that accountability thing, which was through a coaching program I was in at the time. And I remember I was kind of pushing back a little bit because I already had the practice of having a regular accountability coach, someone that I'd found, and I was using him. So to me, it was a little bit redundant, but it really wasn't. There's a lot of benefits from having an accountability coach. So I was glad we met that way. So
me too. And it's a unique and interesting but fun story. And I would say, because I have interviewed you via Zoom, and we have done this before, since the last time we chatted, you've populated your bookshelves a little bit more than before.
Well, yeah. You're talking about what's behind me there?
Yeah.
I mean, that side is journals. Journaling is one thing I do every day, as much for clarity of thought. But the other things are stuff I'm still trying to absorb, and lots of information, lots of good habits, practices to pick up on. I see one on the back of your shelf there, high performance habits.
Yeah, I've been trying to improve my library. Yeah. I'm obviously a color-coded kind of person. You say, have you read this book? I'm like, what color is it?
Oh, yeah. So. Yeah. See, I like height. Tall to short and, whatever. But
I love that. I love that.
A little bit of the OCD that runs through us. But
no, it's the symmetrical stuff. Some people don't like to step on cracks when they walk down the sidewalk. Some people do. It's just hilarious, but I love it. And I did notice, there's more books than there were before, and I love it. And this is fantastic. Well, I am pumped and excited to have you on the show again. There's a lot of things going on in your world. Take a few minutes here, James, and just tell us a little bit about you and your background for my new listeners and for people who don't know who James Stephenson is.
Sure. So married almost 30 years. We're in our 30th year of marriage. My wife and I, we've got 5 kids. I went to college after spending a couple years out of the country. I got a degree in mechanical engineering. worked in the auto industry, got my master's out in Michigan working for various automotive supply companies, and in that process got to kind of an interesting turn. You go into engineering, you're going to be technical. Well, there's a lot of management, program management that goes on in automotive and most companies that are production oriented. And so I ended up getting into program management and ended up developing a system for launching new products for our companies. And I had to go to our different plants. I was in the corporate office, and so I would go out to our plants in Mexico and throughout the US and Canada, and we actually had to implement an enterprise-wide software system. In that process, I ended up being the guy training people on how to use this. It was to facilitate our new product launch, but it was just a phenomenal project and opportunity for me. I got, I guess, less into the technical and more into the logistics of launching stuff. But the sidebar for me was I was doing the training for how to use the systems, and I found that I just loved connecting with people in that process, solving the problems, and doing the training. And ended up changing careers a little bit. Came to a rocket motor company out here in Utah, where I live now, and which was exciting. Oh, you're a rocket scientist. Well, I was actually in operations, and so I was facilitating stuff. But the irony of it is, I hate to say this. My mom always, she passed away last year, but she'd say, you shouldn't say hate. That's such a strong word. But I hated going to work. I hated it. Yeah. For 4 years, it was painful to go to work because of the environment, the culture of particularly the department, not necessarily the company as a whole, but the department I was in. And, a lot of our greatest opportunities are wrapped in our most difficult circumstances. And to me, this was kind of one of those. It was like, holy cow, I've got the time. Our youngest just graduated from high school this week. So it's kind of weird to think we have no kids in K-12 anymore. But in any event, at the time, we had all 5 of our kids are in school. I'm the only breadwinner in the family, which was a joint choice that we made. And so it's like, I can't quit because I've got to pay, and we moved from Michigan. This was in 2008. So our house is on the market for months and months and months, and the price is dropping every month. It keeps dropping. And, so I got 2 mortgage payments, and it's like, oh crap, what am I, I got to do this. So 4 years of just forcing myself to go to work and learning through that. But that discomfort drove me into things that I never would have done before, starting to invest in real estate education, and then starting to invest in real estate. I mean, the education was, 40, 50 grand initially. And it's like, holy cow, I never would have done that if I was happy with my job. I mean, you think people that do that are stupid. Those guys are suckers. And, and yet that's paid for itself time and time and time again. I mean, that literally that investment, because I took action on it, allowed me to get to the point where I could actually quit my job. So this is probably a little bit more than you bargained for in this.
No, I love this.
Well, so I got to the point where I actually switched jobs in the company I was at to a different department, and a lot of the stress and the challenge went away. But by that point, I was down this road of real estate investing. Personal development came out of that, and that, one thing leads to another. And I actually switched into the department. It was a $20,000 a year pay cut to make the switch. And all these decisions I try to make using inspiration, guidance, listen to the universe's messages. And boy, do I drop by 20, 25 grand? I think it was at the time I did that. And you feel that, you feel that in your income, and yet you survive. We think there's no way we can make it, but we do. It's the same way in reverse. As you get more money, you just start consuming more. So It's like, where did that money go? Well, you'll get through it if you take a pay cut for whatever reason. But so I went into the training department, and I had the opportunity to actually get more formal in developing training content, which I was doing, and I loved that. I really did. The one drawback was it was more OSHA type compliance stuff working with, which is, there's a good side to that too. I mean, I love that. You're helping people be safer. You're saving lives. You're getting a lot of connection with a lot of people, a lot of different people. And I love developing the training content. And that's kind of what led to, at that point, I'm watching my net worth go up. I am doing things that I never would have done even 4 years prior to that, because I was so out of my comfort zone in my normal work. I mean, my comfort zone went away. And so I had to, how can I replace my income without having to move my family again, was really what I was looking at it as. And so I started buying investment properties, learning a lot of other things to do with money and how to manage it, tracking our net worth, looking at other investments, started investing in stocks. And the real thing is what I like to focus on now is working with my wife and frankly, just setting a spending plan every month and tracking to it every week. I mean, we didn't do that. And you can make your money go a lot further and direct where it's going if you can get that simple discipline in your life. So that's the long version, John. That's probably a lot more than you asked for. But now I'm doing coaching with couples primarily, and helping them get on the same page with their finances and establish those habits where they can do those exact same things. That's really what I found was the foundation. Kind of another funny story. I hope I'm not rambling on too much.
Keep going, my friend. You're on a roll. I love it.
Redirect me anytime you want, John.
I'll interrupt.
So as I was starting into this real estate investing, I'd connected with a lot of people, going to investor meetings, clubs, and one of them, offered a 15-minute free consultation. So I took him up on it. I wrote about this in the book too. This is a little one. But I sat down with him and he started asking questions. What are you doing? What are you focusing on? I was explaining that in terms of my real estate stuff. He says, well, get really good at one thing first before you start doing something else, which that's great advice in all aspects of your life.
Right.
But towards the end of our little invitation or our little conversation, he said, how much do you budget for education? And, I'd been spending money on education, but I like to ask people, what do you think my answer was? And most people will say 0. And that was not my answer. My answer was, well, we don't budget. I had tried in the past, hadn't been successful, but our budgeting method was basically balancing our checkbook. And when we started going into overdraft, we had to stop spending. And then, till the next paycheck came in and took us back positive again. And we try to be careful, and that was our budgeting process. And
I think a lot of Americans relate with, because
I think so. I think so, and that's I understand that. I mean, we lived that way for 15, 20 years in our marriage, and it wasn't because we didn't try. It wasn't because I knew I should be doing a budget. I got some fun stories of sitting at the computer on Saturday nights before the internet was a big thing. And manually typing in all my receipts into Quicken on my desktop computer, and spending hours doing it. I had my engineering disability because I felt like I had to know all the details. I was breaking out my sales tax, and when my pay stub, I'd try to enter all of my withholdings and the taxes and every level of what it was, because I wanted to know all that detail. You give some of that OCD. And I was just shooting myself in the foot. I never got to where we were actually forecasting. I was just trying to track our past spending, and it wasn't terribly effective. Made me feel better because I was trying, but didn't really bear any fruit at the time. So,
well, that's awesome. I love your story because you've come from such a long way, from an engineering background now into leaving the corporate world and getting into coaching. And you've settled on this awesome thing that is honestly a place where the majority of Americans need help with. And you've found that it's probably the number one area that causes contention in the home, or probably causes a little bit of disagreement. Or in other words, I mean, Dave Ramsey goes off and says that one of the number one causes of divorce is, disagreement on finances, but not to get into that topic, but more so about how you're helping couples, get on their budgets and to see how that can help them and influence them. And I know that recently you've been working on a study, and you've been interviewing couples and diving deeper into the research there and helping them. And I think that's fantastic. But with all of that going around, you've got other things going on in your life. You just started a 501c3, right?
Yeah, I did actually. And that's another one where it's like trying to listen and respond to the universal downloads of what you should be doing. Yeah, I do. I appreciate you bringing that up, John. That's and for the couples thing, I have just done it. I try to do every year a little touch with the marketplace to make sure that the content of the course that I teach and the coaching that I do is really scratching the itch and the needs of what's out there. So I appreciate you taking time to do that as well. And people that are interested in that, they can go to couplesfinancebreakthrough.com/free. There's a free downloadable workbook they can get for to help them get started together. There's a lot of emotion around money, a lot of difficulty, and as you said, that's often Dave Ramsey, others, it depends on where you look. It is either the number one or number two reason for divorce or failure of relationships in those. But you bring up the 501c3. I was raised years ago, decades ago, without a dad in the home. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, that's a lot more common than today than it was back then. I mean, back then, I got a lot of sympathy points from people. I remember as a little boy, well, my parents are divorced, and then I'd look down and I'd just get all these, oh, you poor little boy, and I'd probably be milking it emotionally for what benefits I could get out of it. But it isn't until you grow into adulthood and realize the pieces of your life that you lost because you didn't have a dad in your life, and particularly as a boy. I like to focus on boys and teenage boys growing up without dads in their lives. And I thought, what can I do to help boys that are in that situation now? And I'm still, excuse me, still trying to get to that audience to help them. I hate to call them audience, but I've been a scoutmaster for a few years, and it seems like every year the boys get more challenging than they were the previous years.
I agree.
And a lot of it is the family background, the influence, and there's a lot of influences in the world today that weren't there in the 60s and 70s when I was growing up, and teenager in the 70s and 80s. I had a guy come into my life that it kind of took me under his wing. He was somewhat of a surrogate dad. There were a few guys in my neighborhood that I looked up to. Men had their families and let me. This guy in particular, Mark Gould. I could go over his house Sunday afternoons and watch football and eat snacks and play his foosball table, and he'd take me camping with his family. And we knew him well. It's a little sad today you think of that, and everyone automatically thinks, oh, he's a pedophile. He's grooming someone so that he can take advantage of them. And there are people out there that probably do that, but that was not at all the case. I mean, this guy was, I needed to fix the brakes on my mom's car. I didn't know how to do that. He'd come to my house and sit down with me and show me how to do that. I mean, I didn't know how to do that. Had older brothers, and they showed me some things among the sibling abuse that you get too. But
yeah.
But this guy was really good. So I felt like I need to pay that forward. And so I started a YouTube channel. And in fact, I just put it's unlisted. I've got episode 18 up there now. And if you go to mystepdad.org, then all that does is forward to actually the episode playlist. And, it's one of the things, and this too, you just have to get over your self-consciousness and put yourself out there and hope that the message resonates with people. But, the earlier episodes aren't as good as I'd like them to be. They're getting better. It takes a lot of time and effort, but they're just messages for boys that are growing up without a dad. The real thing I'd like for them to take away is they can succeed. You can still succeed with those things that you typically might learn from a positive male role model in your life, even though your dad may not be there. And that you are loved, you're valued. That's one of the things that I think is one of the challenges that most boys that don't have both parents, and that's probably not universally true, but it's, for me, dad didn't leave mom, dad left me. Why did he leave me? What was wrong with me? And you take that message and you've got to work through that. And so hopefully they can get that sense that, they're loved. They still have a lot of value, a lot of worth, a lot to contribute to society, and hopefully they'll change their trajectory or keep it on track or keep it positive going forward. So.
Well, thank you for sharing a little bit more about that. I think that's just such a good thing. One of our listeners chimed in the chat section on the live and asked what a 501c3 was. And I get so into business talk. It's a nonprofit, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
An organization that's built to share those resources and to help with that. And I think it's awesome because it just embodies, obviously your mission to pay it forward. That gentleman that helped you. And it's funny you brought up the negative connotations that society would post on that man's actions, but I to me it sings dividends of mentorship and stewardship and that's what we should all be. We should all be mentors and stewards, or we should strive to be mentors and stewards, because there's no nobler cause than to help others. And I think that's something that you're doing, and that's amazing. And I appreciate you sharing that. And if there's any way that we can support you in that, I know that our listeners are very, very interested in these very niche groups and these very, very interesting communities. And I think from finance to, mentoring young men, that's just a fantastic place to be in. I do kind of want to shift back over to the finance stuff, because I know that's your bread and butter. And I just wanted to kind of honor you and allow you to share that information and that story and that background about the 501c3 with the young men that you're working on. I also wanted to just take a second. Let's take a small commercial break, and we can actually chop this segment out, and I can send it to you as a video testimonial for James Stephenson. But I wanted to take a minute and honor James. We've had him on my show. James and I are friends. Peers and colleagues in the space. And James, and I didn't mention this before in kind of the introduction and bio, but James is a phenomenal public speaker. He's a great storyteller, and he's got some incredible storytelling tales that he shares about his childhood and some of the experiences that he's had. And I've had the honor of sharing a stage, both in just general speech and competition with James. And he has been a phenomenal leader in the coaching and in public speaking space. And I've just enjoyed every time he gets to speak. He keeps talking, and then he says, "John, just stop me when you want, because I can keep rambling." And I'm like, "No, dude, keep talking, because I could do this all day." James just has that voice and that power and that storytelling capability that just captures and captivates you. And I wanted to honor him and wanted to honor that about him, because he does have a lot of talents and skills that the world gets to hear and gets to be influenced by with James. And so I wanted to take a minute and share with him and share with my listeners how great and how much I look up to you. And so I appreciate you. And I think that you're just a phenomenal person, let alone speaker, let alone coach, let alone advisor, mentor, steward of this awesome, noble cause. I mean, two great things you're working on, and that's not even all the things you're working on. And so it's just so fun to see the projects and the things that you're involved in. So we'll cut that tape, and I'll give you a piece of that, and you can use that as a video testimonial for you. But I just wanted to honor you in that.
Well, John, I appreciate that. I'm really humbled, and I appreciate that. Very, very kind of you to share that. So thank you very much. By the way, I feel the same towards you. By the way, what you're accomplishing, 2 decades ahead of me is amazing. So, it's taken me a lot longer to figure out what I'm supposed to be doing with my life. And you are well on the path for yourself. So,
well, thank you. Yeah, you're welcome. I've got great friends and mentors living around me that I surround myself with, including yourself, who inspire me just with the little actions and the little things they do. But I appreciate that comment. And I do want to transition back to give you an opportunity to talk a little bit about the knowledge you would like to share in regards to, what nuggets of wisdom, what golden nuggets of wisdom can you share with my audience? And I think that, if we kind of hone in on this, the finances piece and what it actually entails and what it can do for couples and families. I'd love to hone in on that, but tell me a little bit, or please share with our audience just the nuggets of knowledge and wisdom you'd like to impart on them, and then we can get to the challenges later.
Sure. Let me jump in. You mentioned, and we talked about that I've done market research, and it hadn't shifted a lot from the last time I had done it.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the things I ask people are, what are your biggest fears and challenges and frustrations? And again, I'm focusing on finances in a relationship. It's surprising to me to see the differences that people do, and that's great. If it works for them, that's great. A lot of people that are married have separate finances. To me, that was like, whoa, a little crude, but I kind of come from the attitude, if you're going to commingle body parts, you ought to be willing to commingle your finances as well, right? and what level of commitment is there? And that's probably not a completely fair statement, because I know people that are just great together, but they keep their finances separate.
Right.
For those of us that don't, there's a lot of emotion around money. There's different backgrounds behind us, and more often than not, it's hard to talk about money. In fact, most of the couples probably are more in an avoidance scenario than actually let's work together. And that's you ask for nuggets. Here's one of the nuggets. We look at finances in a relationship as being one of the difficulties in a relationship.
Right.
Well, the very fact that you're in a relationship together, it can be a tremendous benefit financially. And in fact, it is, if you look at the stats. A lot of it, if you married people generally are going to be better off financially than single people. And, there's a lot of reasons for that. But think of it in terms of how can you strengthen each other? You've got a built-in accountability partner. I mean, I want to go, I'm an impulse buyer just like everyone else, right? Dang, I want that thing. Let's go get it. Oh, let's see. We're going to sit down next week. Every week we sit down and we go over our actual spending to our spending plan. And I've got a built-in accountability partner. And you don't have that if you're not together, right? So there's a lot of advantages. It's a tremendous strength to have that opportunity. The sad part is most of us don't leverage that because we haven't worked through the communication challenges, the emotion around that. We come into a relationship with different backgrounds, and usually they're not positive. Now, if you've had a positive one, that's fantastic. But if both of you, the odds of both of you having a positive financial role model in your relationships is not that likely,
Right.
And I talk about this a little bit in my book, Small Steps, Big Feet. There's a couple chapters, and that's not focused on couples, but it is on the disciplines that I like to help couples implement now, of setting a spending plan every month, tracking to it every week, and knowing and tracking your net worth. Nothing more important, no more important metric for your personal finances than your net worth. And most people either don't even know what it is or know what the concept is, but don't do that one. And it's pretty simple to do, but that's another one that they work with couples to implement together. But don't think of finances as a difficulty in your relationship. Think of your relationship as being a tremendous advantage to your finances. That's one nugget, I guess, or one principle, one thought that I'd love to leave with the audience that's listening today, and it will be in the future. So that the old analogy in engineering background, you take one stick and you can break it. You put two sticks of the same diameter, and individually you can break them easier. It takes more than twice the force to break two of them together. It's that same concept, is when you've got two of you working together. And I hate to say holding yourself accountable, because it sounds like, I'm going to watch you. There's just a natural built-in accountability that when you're working together towards the same goals, it's a synergy that's going to happen naturally. And most couples don't leverage that opportunity because we can't get through the emotions, our own baggage, and the skills of communication that you don't learn in school to get to that point of where we're really leveraging our relationship, as opposed to our finances are causing strain in our relationship. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. That's fascinating. And it's cool that you've your research hasn't shifted dramatically what you've done, but you've discovered how much more powerful that working together can lead to strengthening the relationship and strengthening your finances. I I guess when people listen to Dave Ramsey, they get that it will strengthen their family. But I love that you said no. It will. Yeah, that's obvious, but it will strengthen your finances. Like that.
Yeah.
That's a really cool principle to highlight that, and I think that's a motivator that a lot of people consider, but they don't recognize, because money is a motivator and money is something. And though there are bigger picture things that we're working towards and for, money is still a byproduct of it. And I just think that's a fascinating concept, and a cool discovery to find, as you're doing this research.
Yeah. Well, and there's another point I'd make, and I don't even know what the timing on this is, but like you quoted me already, just you're ready to shut me up and tell me to stop.
You're good, James.
But there's another principle with this, that two can strengthen each other. But one thing that holds us back, and I did this for years, when we make more money, we'll start doing this, because we just don't have enough money to start doing our budgeting, which is completely backwards thought process. I mean, that's the message is this: it's never going to be easier than now.
Yeah.
It's not going to be easier when you make more money. It's not going to be easier when you've got less stress in your relationship, because you're probably going to have stress in your relationship at times. I mean, it's part of a relationship. I mean, we do stupid things to each other, and particularly in a marriage or in a long-term relationship, we get past that honeymoon phase, a lot of our risks becomes, we get transactional. You do this, I do this, and this is our lives together. It's not that I love you, I love being with you all the time, I can't wait for it, like it was when we were dating or getting to know each other. Our relationship was new. It was, oh my gosh, she likes me, I can't believe it, and you just love that. Well, you get in, particularly, for those of us that have raised kids, life happens to you, you separate, and you don't really separate, but emotionally it shifts to where it becomes transactional. Well, it's never going to be easier to change that than now. It's interesting. I wrote about this in the book too. You get a raise at your job. If you're in a salary one, if you're in the entrepreneurial world, then maybe you get a new client or something like that, where your money starts coming in more. Well, what happens to most of us when that happens? We start using it, right? We just consume more. And I'd get a raise, you get a raise. I started in 1992 in the automotive industry, and I got hired on for $35,000 a year. And I thought, man, how am I going to spend that much? Now, we'd been living on $18,000 a year at the time as a newly wed couple in very low expense scenario. 35 grand a year, like, man, I'll never be able to spend that much. Well, that's laughable now, because as soon as you start paying market price for rent instead of renting from your parents, or you're buying all your stuff, then it's the money goes quickly. And you get a raise. I mean, within 2 years, I think my salary was close to 50 grand, which, and I was trying to be a mover and a shaker in the industry, and young, new, gung-ho engineer. And so the salary went up, but, it's like you're still going paycheck to paycheck. And so it's never going to be easier to change that than now.
Right.
Well, don't keep kidding yourself that in the future it's going to be easier, because it won't be. And in fact, you're missing all of the time that you can. I mean, you're a heck of a lot younger than me. I mean, you put these things in the habit now, you got a lifetime of benefits, as opposed to it took me till, we didn't do this till 5 or 7 years ago together, because it was too difficult to talk about, a lot of emotion around it. And we finally bit the bullet and started the practices, and have seen the benefits as a result. So,
well, you're absolutely right. And I think I'm just reading a quick note here. You mentioned in the process you signed up to take this hour, and you mentioned that it's not the differences in the money perspectives that causes most stresses in relationships, but as much as it is the need to be right. And I think that because of that transactional relationship that is evolved from the what's the next step, like we go from dating to engagement to marriage to intimacy, and then beyond that, and children and families. But like, it's not necessarily the differences in finances. It's just it's who's right and who's wrong. Who can we blame? Who can we point fingers at? Who overspent last month? Who decided to buy an expensive toy while I was just buying a little thing here and there? There's so many angles to this, but I think that's a very, very interesting and cool perspective, which I put in here the show notes. The people need to go check out the book Small Steps, Big Feet by James Stephenson, because you do touch on some of these topics, and also there are some opportunities that people can get involved in, and I either take a course or take a small coaching class with you and other couples. Would you be willing to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, of course. I'd love to talk about that. Well, and the reality of it is it's not for everybody. Not everyone's not ready for it. And find something that will help you be successful and chase that. You mentioned Dave Ramsey, and I love listening to Dave Ramsey. I went to some of his events when he was here in town, or one of his events, and he's got his baby steps, and that's great. If that works for you, you go do that.
Exactly.
I know churches offer courses for free, and if that works for you, you go take them, do them. If you're not doing that stuff, do that. But if you're like me, then sometimes you need a little skin in the game and a little more one-on-one attention. And so one of the things that I've developed is it's a 7-week live online course. I call it Couples Finance Breakthrough. In fact, I'll be starting one again here next month in just a couple weeks for the next session of that one. And that's where it's a group one. That's a group coaching. You can learn a little bit more about that at couplesfinancebreakthrough.com. And we basically work with couples to get through those differences. So the first time I taught it, it's kind of fun. I came at this from the engineering finance side, but it was suggested to me that I'd be good with couples. So I thought, you know what? I love the idea. Let me do that. So I tried that. Had a little 3-hour evening event locally here, and had 6-7 couples come to that, and that was good. That was the first one, so you get better. I thought I'm gonna do this course. I did this course, and I had the first 5 weeks were all in the financial principles, and then the 6th week was dealing with differences, and then the 7th week was a little bit more investing. I like to get people. It's not just having a spending plan, but you've got to have components of giving to charity, passive investing, and active investing to really be successful. Savings and active investing, and that's why I say this is not for everybody. I teach people to do this online with a free tool, mint.com. That's what I've used for years. It's free. Okay. But it automates stuff. Well, a lot of people, I'm not putting my stuff online. That's great. Do it on paper. But the more difficult it is for you to do, the less likely you are to do it. That's why I leverage this and teach people to do that. So that first one I taught, the 5 weeks of the principles. Week 6 was dealing with differences. And the feedback that came out of that one was, well, we had all our differences in weeks 1 through 5, and you didn't show us anything about how to deal with the differences until week 6. So that was the wrong timing. It's like, that was fantastic feedback. So now the course, each week there's a relationship component and a financial component each week for the 7 weeks. So we're working on building your relationship, breaking through the communication barriers. I mean, having a third party help facilitate that is a great tool in and of itself, because a lot of couples, when they have a difference, they go to silence. It's just avoiding it, right? And we're not going to talk about it. Hence, we don't address the financial issues. We fumble through some way and we make it work, and that's great. But we're not leveraging each other. We're not enjoying the benefits of having 2 people with a common goal that are working together with a system that, frankly, is not hard to do once you get the patterns down. And we're missing out on all that. So work on the relationship. In fact, I say first. That's got to be first, and then the finances at the same time together. And it's a great opportunity where you can come closer together while you're putting those practices in place in your relationship, in your marriage, to leverage for the rest of your married life, that you're going to see financial benefits from doing that.
I'm adding a note here in the comment section about that, because that's a huge principle. And I think that a lot of people just need to from personal experience, I'm coming from personal experience here, and I'm saying that simplifying the process and making it a place where you can agree on and work together will strengthen your relationship and send you both in an upward direction instead of a downward
Mm-hmm.
direction. And what I mean by that is the increase of value versus the decrease of assets and cash. And
Mm-hmm.
I love that principle. How can our listeners find out more about you and your business and even your book? Where can they go to get that?
Well, I hate to dump a whole bunch of different websites, and I should have one
I love
consolidated.
it. I got it all in the comment section.
You got them all. Okay, so the book, you can go to smallstepsbigfeet.com, and you got to make sure you spell feet with an F-E-A-T, not F-E-E-T. You know, we're not talking Bigfoot. We're talking accomplishments. And the whole premise behind that book was that, you know, if you do small things consistently over time, they have a huge impact. And I cover other areas in here too: health, the finance piece, of course, goal setting, and just personal development. Small things make a big difference when we sustain them over time. And that's true with our finances in a relationship too, or finances for individuals too.
Right.
So smallstepsbigfeet.com, you can actually get a free downloadable version of the book there, or you can click through to get the Kindle version or order a hard copy. Personally, I like hard copies because I like to highlight, or I don't have an audio version out. I need to get that done too, but I'll put that on the list. But you can get more about the book there. Couplesfinancebreakthrough.com, you can learn about the course, but that's really a registration page for the next course. If you go to couplesfinancebreakthrough.com/free, there's a little downloadable workbook that you can get, 7 steps to financial success for marriage. And that gets you in my contact database. So you'll start getting emails from me, or just, I'm on Facebook, James Stephenson. You can email me at info@mytriumphtraining.com. I'm tempted to give out my cell phone if you wanted to text me or call me, but those are ways you can get in touch with me. But
you can also reach James on Facebook. I've been using Facebook more than giving out my cell phone number.
Yeah, Facebook Messenger. Yeah, it's a great way to connect with people. So as long as you don't get too sucked into all the time lost.
And that's something that you and I have joked about, talked about behind the curtain here, and have talked about backstage, is how much social media can just suck you in. And it's an important piece of business, but at the end of the day, the most important thing is just servicing clients and building relationships.
Yeah. Well, and to that, it can be. You mentioned earlier, John, that it really serving people. In fact, when I left the corporate world, and now it's like, okay, you've got to come up with your own income, or live on your reserves.
Yeah.
Until you've got that, marketing. It's funny, you start a business, sidebar, not about that. My idea was 80% is all of the content that I'm doing, the efforts, the workshops, the training, put it all into that. And, if you build it, they will come type thing. Well, that's a crock of crap, because if people don't know about it, they're not going to come.
Right.
So learning about marketing and sales and stuff like that has been probably the biggest challenge for me or the biggest opportunity for me in this venture. And it really comes down to being more interested in helping people than making a sale. And that's really, social media can help you connect with people and give them value, and, in-person workshops, events, Facebook Lives, whatever else. That's really what it's about, is helping other people through their challenges. And that makes it a lot easier, because who doesn't want to do that?
Who does it? And to complement your vulnerability, thank you for sharing that, and just, sharing how challenging marketing is. James and I have been working with some of the same mentors and some of the same marketing professionals and gurus, and I'll call them stewards, because they've literally have, gotten into the weeds of both of our businesses and have guided us and have helped us on the marketing end, the social media, the content creation. And it's just been a fun journey for the two of us to kind of run down the same lane, and to see what things that we've been taught on that end that work in two completely different industries, and that they work the same. The principles and the foundations and the pillars of success in business are all founded on the same foundation. So I think that's just super fun and super cool to watch. So let's finish up this awesome hour, by the way. This has been a really cool conversation. And again, I could listen to James all day. And I do want to ask, and this is a critical piece to what we do here on the Circle of Knowledge, which is now that we've talked about a plethora of things, we've talked about couples finances and the power between working together and simplifying and having a plan, and we've given them free resources. Thank you, by the way, for that free resource. And everyone should go to couplesfinancebreakthrough.com/free to get that free resource, but also check out the website, because James just mentioned he does have a couples finance session starting up here in the next week and a half or so. And that will be an awesome resource for you and your significant other. And what a really cool opportunity. But let's wrap up this podcast by issuing a challenge. So based on the knowledge that we've received today and based on the knowledge that you've shared, what's a challenge we can issue to our audience that they can take action on immediately?
Well, it would be this. If you are among this audience, you're listening, and as we talk and you think about, if you're in a relationship particularly, and you know you're avoiding the discussions, you're not able to have those discussions with your partner, then quit putting it off. Bite the bullet. Don't wait for the circumstances to be perfect to take action. And even if that action is, let's have a conversation together about our money. Get that free workbook, because that's actually one of the first steps, is to sit down and talk about your financial role models from when you were growing up. That's a lot of the differences of why you bring into difficulty in the relationship about money, is because my parents taught me this, your parents taught you that, or whatever else. So maybe that would be the challenge. One, quit delaying. Don't put it off. Before you go to bed tonight, have a conversation with your partner. And go to that. You get that free resource if you want, and that's a little outline. You can use that as we're going to talk about our financial background differences. Who are your financial role models? What were your attitudes, and so forth. So how about that for a challenge? Don't put it off. Do that today. Do that before you go to bed tonight.
I love it. It's bold. It's direct. Let's do it.
It's doable.
It's so doable. So doable. I'll take the challenge too, because I'm fascinated by the document. I am a free download junkie, and I also that's where I learn a lot, and that's where I gain a lot of my information. Most people will download stuff and not read them. I have a stack of paper that I've printed off of my printer, because I'm more of a hardback kind of person too.
Yeah.
I download things and I read them and consume them on the daily basis. But I love that challenge. So take action today. Don't delay. Just get on it. I love that. And that's bold advice and incredible value given to us by James Stephenson. James, I want to thank you for jumping on, and please feel free to get on my calendar again, and let's talk if there's more, because I know we just barely touched the surface. I know we can get definitely in deep and talk about the various details. There's just so much compacted into your book in every chapter and in every page, and I know that we could spend months and months and months just talking about that stuff, but at the end of the day, I think that this is information that is invaluable, and it's incredibly important for families of America and families of the world. I did find out recently that 94% of my listeners, of the 20,000 downloads we've had from the Circle of Knowledge podcast, are from the United States. And then the next 4% are from Canada. But then I've got 4, 5, 6, 7 listeners in countries from Botswana to like Germany. And I have no idea why and how they find it. But if you're international, this is still a resource that's and the resources that James teaches, they're applicable because you can find them anywhere. Mint is a international resource, and there's just so many great places that you can grab and learn to get on the same page and to have empowering conversations with your partner.
John, thank you so much. I appreciate it's always an honor to talk with you and particularly be on your program. So thank you very much for letting me.
Absolutely. This has been an awesome hour. Thank you, James, for joining us. I'm going to stop live stream and stop this. Appreciate you guys. And thank you for joining us on the Circle of Knowledge podcast. Awesome.
John, thank you. You are